Hi, everybody. Steven Mirassou, winemaker at the Steven Kent Winery in the Livermore Valley. And I'm coming to you today from my family room here at my house in downtown Livermore. And we are about to host, oh, I don't know, about 200 club members over this coming weekend. It's our annual club member appreciation weekend. And during this weekend, we pour a number of wines that are library wines, wines that have been in our library for the last 10 to 12 years. And our flagship wine, Lineage, which is a Bordeaux blend, a left bank Bordeaux blend. So that means Cabernet Sauvignon heavy. And each blend of Lineage is of varying proportions of Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, and Merlot. We're going to be pouring 11, 12, and 13 for our guests, club members tomorrow and Sunday. And I just wanted to take a few minutes to talk about these wines and talk about their importance in the span of the Steven Kent Winery. Lineage began as a project in 2007. I had been making Cabernet Sauvignon since 1996. And over the course of several years, especially starting in about 2001 or so, we were making a lot of different wines for our club members, wine clubs that we had started, wine clubs that we really enjoyed, still enjoy. They're still extant in some form or another. But there got to be a point where our original mission of trying to make one great wine from Livermore, a Cabernet Sauvignon based wine that we thought could compare to Napa and Sonoma, was getting drowned a bit in a sea of really beautiful and delicious Grenache and Petit Syrah and Syrah and Barbera and Sangiovese, that our original impulse, our original mission began to fade. We were losing a little bit of control over a statement that we were trying to make and we continue to try to make, which is that Livermore Valley is one of the great winemaking places in the world, certainly in California. It's unusual in that it's an east-west oriented valley. It's about 1,000 feet above sea level. It gets colder and colder the more climate change affects outside areas that are near us, but that are distinct from us, like the Central Valley. The warmer it gets there, the windier it gets in Livermore. The windier it gets in Livermore, the shorter the days become in terms of photosynthetic activity, and the longer the season needs to become because you have all of these hours, aggregate hours of ripening effect that you need to get fruit optimally ripe. In 2007, I had a come to Jesus moment with myself, and that was if we want to continue to be reviewed as one of the premier producers of Bordeaux varieties in California, and especially from the Livermore Valley, we needed to refocus a bit. We needed to look at the fruit sources that we were farming or that we were buying fruit from and figure out a way to highlight those sources and to highlight our winemaking philosophy in a fashion that was going to continue to excite people, that would give us the best opportunity to make the finest wines we possibly could. Lineage was born in 2007, not coincidentally, but happened to be one of the great vintages in California in the last 20 or 30 years. Everything came across the crush pad was perfect. It was a warm growing year, but not a real hot growing year. Everything got ripe, but everything got ripe in a 14% and a 13.9 to 14.2% range, which is perfect for us. We don't like to make 15% alcohol wines. We don't believe in power over beauty. We believe in beauty and grace and elegance as the watchwords for the style of wines that we're trying to make. 2011 was a very rainy year in Livermore, and really one of the worst, and all over California for that matter. It was really one of the kind of worst years from a weather standpoint that we've had, God, since 1998, perhaps. And the fact that it rained all throughout the year made the start of harvest a little later than normal. Bud break happened a little bit later than normal. And the hard part about the vintage was we were harvesting Cabernet or trying to harvest Cabernet and Cab Franc and Merlot in between the raindrops, as it were. We were looking at trying to find days that had been relatively dry after rain. The winds would come through and would help to ease mildew pressure and the like and help to dry things out, help to undilute berries, as it were. The more it rains, the more water the vine soaks up, the more the berries, the individual grapes, will plump. And they plump because they're absorbing water from the trunk of the tree. And you dilute flavors that way, dilute structure, dilute tannin, that sort of thing. We were able finally to get enough fruit in that was of world-class quality that we were able to make Lineage. I was able to put a blend together that ultimately I was very happy with at the time. The press trashed 11 as a vintage. They have this unfortunate duty or this compulsion to try to judge things way too early. They need to be the first out on the dot. The Wine Spectator people, Decanter Magazine, Robert Parker, whomever, has to make a pronouncement about the vintage even before the vintage is done, even before the wines are bottled and put to bed. There's a proclamation about the quality of the vintage. They fucked up 2011 totally. It ended up being a spectacular vintage for the wines that were made to begin with. 11's always been one of my proudest achievements because I think that we made really good choices about when to harvest the fruit and really good choices about which vineyards to include in the final blend. The 2011 is now a 14-year-old, almost a 15-year-old wine, and it's showing like I remember it. What I liked about the wine always was that it was dark fruited, but it had a real shape to it. It had a sense of boundary and a sense of propriety that's unusual for California, especially in California's warm years. And we'll talk about that in 2012 in a second. 11 was always a very elegant wine, maintains that elegance, maintains that dark fruited quality in the nose and on entry. The wine persists in a sense of reservedness. It is still tight, still relatively austere, still has great length and great acidity. It's really one of those beautiful wines that as part of a vintage that was trashed has always held great affection for me because it was hard to make wine, hard to make good wine in a vintage like that. 2012, on the other hand, was like one of those laboratory retriever years. The fruit came across, the fruit was friendly, the season was friendly, it was warm, but again, not too hot, like 13, which we'll talk about in a second. The wine itself, when we first made the blend and in its first several years of being available in the marketplace, was a very round, not simple wine exactly, but a wine that wasn't showing all the depth that I think that it has. And it really took about 10 years for this wine, which is 72% Cabernet Sauvignon compared to 62% Cabernet Sauvignon in the 2011 blend. It really 10 years after release ripped its shirt open and displayed all these really muscly muscles. The structure of the wine really started to come to the fore. The ebullient fruit, the friendly Labrador Retriever lick your face kind of fruit that was there from the first 8 years of its life, really toned down pretty substantially. It's there to be certain. It really serves as a beautiful base for the wine. There's really neat herbal qualities. There's some olive leaf and there's dusty fennel pollen kinds of notes in there as well. But the wine in the mouth is showing a structure that is just gorgeous. The fruit's a little redder than it was in 2011, but it's got great compactness still. And it has great acid drive, I think, which is one of the hallmarks of Steven Kent as a style, is a reliance on acidity, a need to have acid in order to make elegant age-worthy wines. There's plenty of tannin still there. This wine still is young to me. And I think that it is definitely a product of its vintage. It was a product of a seamless growing season without a lot of peaks and valleys in terms of heat. Livermore can get very hot around Labor Day. The few days before and after Labor Day weekend tend to be the hottest in Livermore. And some years, like 2022, for instance, were just disastrous in a way. In 2012, they weren't. It was warm, but again, cool, really cool evenings, Fruit from Gilmedi Vineyard in our eastern foothills, especially, is picked late compared to most vineyards in California that produce Bordeaux varieties. And because of that, you get a sense of ripeness and a sense of balance without real high sugar levels. So 2012 is an antidote to 2011 in terms of weather. 2013 takes it up another notch. It was not an extremely warm year, but significantly warm, warmer than 13, but warmer than 12, excuse me. More temperature variance, especially on the high end, and produced really ripe fruit. The whole 13 vintage, all of the cab vineyards that we were using at the time, which I think numbered five, several blocks of Merlot, several blocks of Cabernet Franc that we were using, all came in beautifully ripe, all came in with a sense of seriousness to them. I think 13 is a serious wine, whereas 12 is has grown up. 12 is not a hapless teenager anymore. 13 always was one of those wines that was extremely serious from the moment of its birth. It is, a, again, dark fruited core. This is a wine it has the least percentage of Cab Sauv in of these three wines, only 50%. It was 30% Cabernet Franc. To that point, the highest percentage of Cab Franc that we've ever had in the Lineage blend. And it serves its purpose beautifully by creating the sense of electricity and sexiness and energy that runs through the wine, provides that kind of leavening effect to the real structure, the bones of Cabernet Sauvignon, and the muscularity, the fleshiness of Merlot. It's really absolutely gorgeous wine. Great vintage for California. This is a wine that, in a certain way, hasn't shed all of its baby fat, in a way, from a textural standpoint in the mouth. It opens with the attack, dark fruited, fair amount of tannin on entry, great acidity on entry. That Cabernet Franc kind of carries that acidity all the way through this really long kind of journey in your mouth. And when you get to the finish, the tannins are really blooming. They blossom, they become really the dominant feature of the wine on the finish. These are this particular vintage of wine is there's 10 years to this wine without any problem at all. And we're probably looking at 4, 5, 6 years for the other two vintages. I think it's a testament to Livermore Valley, to the quality of the fruit that's grown here. I hope it's a testament to the way we think about the Bordeaux varieties, the way that we look at Cabernet Sauvignon as a way of creating a scaffold upon which we hang all these other beautiful characteristics from Cab Franc and Merlot and Petit Verdot and Malbec when we did use them, as we did in these years. And I think that these are wines that put them in a blind tasting with wines from Napa of the same age, and you'll be surprised at which bottles are finished first. Steven Mirassou, Steven Kent Winery. Hope you get a chance to try these wines at the winery. They will be available for a short period of time. And I think, again, they are some of the wines I'm most proud of having made. Happy holidays. Cheers. Drink something delicious.